Hello and welcome to another version review. Today we're taking a look at the latest version, 5.5, and I am back at my normal setup, so things are going to be much nicer to record and do everything. So yes, we are back at a script because I have the time and everything to make it. So, as an overview to 5.5, we got a new area and our final big area of Natlan alongside the ending of the Saurian Companion World Quest, and that's about it for permanent stuff outside of the new tribe stuff. Our main event was centered around the Natlan Saurians and Ifa, surprisingly, and then for minor events we had an interesting combat event, which yes, I know my tone makes it sound like this wasn't a horrendous combat event in the Natlan patches, so stick around to hear about my thoughts on that. Then there was a co-op / PvP event, and lastly a Pong event in Natlan. Let's begin with the permanent stuff, of course. I mean, if you have experienced the volcano area yourselves, you must likely know, if you have also watched my previous version reviews on the Natlan areas, that I'm not going to have a different opinion compared to them. The volcano area wasn't massive, and that was because through the world quest you unlocked the inside of the volcano, but save that for just a bit. For the above ground overworld exploration, it's just the same boring Natlan stuff that I have said multiple times, just doesn't feel like Genshin. Just like the other Natlan areas, there isn't a single elemental puzzle in this area, and everything is an interact button masked behind Phlogiston or a Saurian. And speaking of Saurian, the new Tankosaurus felt horrendous to control, especially the fact that you had to dash or use its skill, then ram yourself into a wall, and then dash again in order to activate the super sprint mode, which makes no sense whatsoever. Why isn't it just a double tap of the dash button? And yeah, this Saurian is massive, but it's still controlled like ass, which of course it does so that you get annoyed and pull for the characters that have its properties, just like every other Saurian. So, for puzzles and stuff, nothing changed, so this area was just hella boring to explore. As for the volcano gimmick, I have to say I was expecting something big because of the wording that I saw in leaks, and for the first time the volcano erupts, it did feel scary and interesting, but then would erupt randomly at what felt like every 5 to 10 minutes, making my interest of the gimmick disappear very quickly. Also, it doesn't really change anything, you just have to dodge boulders for 10 seconds and then it stops. It was very funny though to find enemies at low HP that got hit by the lava boulders. But all in all, it's just a nothing area. Once again, nothing Genshin about it. There isn't anything that I would even call a puzzle in the area, in general. But how about the inside of the volcano, which is tied to the world quest, so I think of course we should look at them at the same time. This was the conclusion of the Saurian Companion quest, although to see the absolute ending, you have to do all of the other side quests that involve your Saurian, which is kind of I would have liked if before starting the quest, they would ask you to mark any quests or areas that have quests related to your Saurian so that you would do those first and then fully complete the story, because it will feel weird doing those after completing the world quest. Anyway, through the quest, you enter the volcano where you find that it actually is the ancient city of the dragons, and it looked very beautiful. Exploration was for the most part pretty linear, but it actually had a few puzzles here and there, even though because of the Phlogiston and Saurian stuff, it was all still interact buttons and look at the thing move around. But I have to say, through the visuals and some of the gameplay stuff, mainly the shooter section, on top of the mechanical dragons, which made me use gyroscope controls, even though I think I had turned them off, I had an okay amount of fun and interest exploring the inside of the volcano and doing the world quest. Didn't really like the boss at the end, because for the most part, well, you're just spamming attacks with the Traveler, waiting for cooldowns, and it kind of ruins any coolness factor it might have. And that's the new areas. The overworld stuff was exactly as boring as all the other Natlan areas, and the inside of the volcano was beautiful, sure, but it didn't break any grounds in terms of exploring gameplay and the world quest, while an interesting conclusion to the story, which very, very honestly was way more interesting than the fucking Archon quest. I really would have liked that it would give us the option to mark any remaining Saurian related quests so that the journey with the Saurian gets completed as it should, because I don't feel like running around like an idiot searching for the remaining quests that I have yet to do just to see the actual final cutscene, nor do I want to search up guides and stuff and hopefully remember which quests I have done and which I haven't. So, with that out of the way, let's get into the events. Starting, of course, with the main event, whose story centered around an ill Saurian and a ghost of another Saurian that is tied to Aoife's ancestors. Thankfully, the festival that was connected to this event actually had a reason to exist and have focus on it because it was heavily tied to the Saurian storyline, so that was good. And all in all, I wasn't that captivated by the story. It was okay, and that's it. It's not some groundbreaking emotional story, it just did its job. Can't say the same for the minigames though. Holy shit, I think we have a contender for the worst minigames in a main event. So we had two minigames, an attack and defense minigame using Natlan characters, and a Pac-Man ripoff. Let's start with the attack defense one. To put it quickly, you are forced to use a specific Natlan character in each of the stages, so you can guess, with the general perception of Natlan characters, how well that bode with the community. And you had to either attack points in order to generate energy and break a barrier, or defend your points from incoming enemy waves. I mean, both weren't crazy in terms of gameplay, and they would be completely harmless, but the fact that not only did they force you to use a Natlan character, the stages had specific buffs for those characters going as far as only affecting that character. In the attack stages, it was actually impossible to complete them without using them because they decided to giga buff the enemies in order to force you into using the characters with the buffs. You seriously would not be able to kill the enemies because only the specific Natlan characters with their buffs would deal any significant amount of damage. And in the defense stages, you had 3 goals to complete. Those being defending your points until the timer ran out, killing an amount of enemy waves, but also a goal tied specifically to the Natlan character that you were forced to use. Holy shit, that's so bad. And so if you didn't like the Natlan character that you were forced to use, tough luck, go fuck yourself. If you didn't have the proper teams to use these characters, tough luck, go fuck yourself. Or the worst case scenario, which was the fact they forced you to use Kachina in one of the defense stages and she's completely useless. Horrendous. Just that. Please never do this again with any region's characters. And for the second minigame, tell me, would you like to play Pac-Man, but you cannot control Pac-Man directly? Instead, you have to turn arrows on the stage to force Pac-Man in a direction? And there is no way to permanently or temporarily defeat the enemies on the track? And most importantly, Pac-Man can get tired? As for me, hell fucking no! I would not like to play such a version of Pac-Man, but guess what? This minigame was exactly that. You control the Saurian. Oh wait, you didn't control the Saurian, you controlled the arrows on the floor to guide the Saurian and just pick up stuff like the pallets in Pac-Man. You had no attacks against the enemies, and the Saurian could get tired! You could also switch to another Saurian, but it could also get tired as well! It was one of the worst things I have played in my entire life, and I hope to never see such a thing again. So all in all, this was one of the worst main events ever. The story was nothing much. It doesn't drag the event down, but it doesn't boost it up either. But the minigames drag this event to the pits of hell. These minigames sucked completely. So let's just move on to the minor events, and yes, I will keep the combat one for last, as the other ones are very quick, don't worry. First is the co-op minigame that I didn't touch at all, because I don't like these. And then there is the Pong minor event, which is a complete, and I mean complete rehash of the Pong/Breakout/Arkanoid minigame that was in an Inazuma Festival main event around a year ago. It is exactly the same. No, this time I won't put up Arkanoid footage on the screen, but it's boring. That's all I'll tell you. The ball is very slow, the elemental brick stuff doesn't really make it very interesting, and many times when the ball hits a block, the bounce angle just feels completely wrong. So, it's boring. Alright, let's then finish up with the combat event. So, If any one of you plays Zenless Zone Zero, you will immediately recognize this event as it is like Deadly Assault or Deadass for short, which is very funny. Thank you, CCC community, for that shortening. So this event pitted you up against 5 different bosses in their own stages, and your goal was to drain as many HP bars of the boss as you could. But there was more to that, of course. First is that there was a first half in which you had to use a team to complete a goal in order to gain buffs for the second half. These goals ranged from breaking elemental shields to constantly having corruption on your characters and needing to keep up your HP above 80% until the bar that had the buffs filled up. Honestly, most of them you would expect, but the corrosion one was interesting to see and caught me off guard. Now, the bosses that you had to go up against were the Aeon Blight Drake, the new Lava Dragon boss, which, yes, I didn't mention in the area part, the area part of the review, but since I knew he appears here, I knew that I could talk about it here. Next, though, was the Mountain King, the Terror Shroom, and lastly, the Natlan Automaton. Oh boy. Let's start with the Drake. Now, the stages had some very significant buffs to some aspect of your damage, and they did expect you to use them to get the max rank, which, speaking of, the HP bars were nothing. Each bar felt like a level 1 boss HP bar, so a 50k hit from something could easily take away 5+ bars. So it wasn't that tough to drain them. In order to get the medals, you had to take away 50, 100, 200, and 900 HP bars, which when I first saw, I thought that getting 200 would be a challenge for all the older players like me, and 900 would be the giga whale territory, like the infamous Natlan Tower event. But somehow, not at all. That's not the case at all. The average player, from my experience and looking at some of my friends that don't have any super meta units, you would average 600 to 700 HP bars depending on the buffs. For me, it was actually fun, believe it or not, and very achievable to get around 1,000 HP bars, which, yeah, is 100 over what's needed, except for one stage where I got 1,300 HP bars because the buffs were completely busted. So, yeah, and I did this with plenty of teams many times. I completed many stages with multiple teams. So, let's see the stages. The Drake. It was challenging to find the characters to use to try multiple teams because of the need for a bow character. Now, the buffs were very specifically made with Chaska in mind. She's a bow character, of course, as well, as the big buff that you got needed a character to deal multiple types of elemental damage, and only Chaska can really do that outside of other Anemo units, and she got multiple attack buffs through that, so she dealt a fuck ton of damage. But actually, if you could fit a useful bow unit into a team, you were very much settled on getting the 900 HP bars. I just didn't have that many bow units to try out and fit into teams. Next up was the Lava Dragon, and you were very limited on this guy because he needs only Pyro to hit him, else he goes back to his base form that has high resistances. Hitting him with Cryo or Hydro would not allow you to get the damage in and get to the stage where it gets staggered and has very, very lower resistances. So, unfortunately, you were very, very limited on what you could bring because we have a lot of good Cryo and Hydro buffers especially. Or using Vaporize characters wasn't possible because they need Hydro. This stage was made for Kinich, as burning is one of the best strategies against this boss, but actually I think I did it with my Xiao team with Bennett, Jan, and Faruzan because the Bennett-Jan combo is pretty good at applying Pyro, and I honestly felt a giant difference to my Kinich compared to one of my friends because they own Kinich's weapon, while I don't. I use a Wolf's Gravestone, and the damage differential was massive. And I mean massive. I could not get close at all to the 900 HP bars. As I said, on average, you would get 600 to 700, but they had no problem with the insane damage they got because they owned the weapon. Moving on, the Fat Mountain King had vaporized buffs, so any Pyro team easily got to the 900 HP bars, and thanks to its self-damaging mechanic, it made it even easier, so I said it was very, very easy to get the max rewards on this one. The Terror Shroom had massive plunge attack buffs, which made my Xiao go absolutely insane. They wanted you to use Varesa, but fuck no, Xiao deleted this thing. And lastly was the Natlan Automaton that can go fuck itself. The first half, here wanted you to trigger Night Soul bursts, which was impossible to get all the buffs unless you used 4 Natlan characters, because the cooldown of Night Soul bursts would not get low enough to activate as many as was needed. And of course we're talking about the Natlan automaton. Unless you have Night Soul damage to activate its pillars to lower its resistances, you ain't doing the damage needed. As for me, I used up my Kinich and like a level 40 Kachina that I've got, alongside the 2 trial Natlan characters to get 4 of them on the first half, and I was absolutely forced to use my Prime Nouvellette team with a C6 Furina for the boss, alongside Auroron to activate its mechanic as many times as possible, and guess what? It didn't even do it, unless I used HP food buffs to make Furina Nouvellette go crazy. I mean, I don't have Nouvellette's main weapon, I have got Risley's weapon on him, which is still really good, but yeah, I needed HP food buffs and stuff to actually get 1,000 bars, else I couldn't because of the stupid fucking boss. So wow, all of the other stages that had normal bosses, I did many times with different teams as I said, but that last one with the bullshit automaton, I had to use one of my most powerful teams and with food buffs on top of that. Fuck this boss, have I said that enough times? And fuck the bullshit Night Soul bursts, which, guess what? The buffs wanted you to trigger even more Night Soul bursts to activate them and keep them up. So you just needed all Natlan characters on both halves to fully do this, I guess, the normal way, let's say. All in all, this was a good Genshin variation of Deadly Assault, but it once again proves the bad influence Natlan has had into Genshin's combat. And that's it, that's everything. The area was as I expected, honestly. If they continued the Phlogiston and Saurian garbage, then exploration in Natlan would continue to be boring as fuck. The main event was a huge disaster except for the harmless story, and the minor events were interesting and nice for the combat one. I'm just out for the co-op one, and the breakout rehash was boring as hell as well. So, thank you for watching. New version is coming in around a week, and we have interesting story stuff to see as we are surprisingly but welcomingly back in Mondstadt of all places. But gameplay wise, we are at mostly getting a new weekly boss and of course events. As for character reviews, I'm not that interested in Escoffier, but Aoife is running on her banner, so I could randomly get her, but don't expect a video, as I said in the Abyss review, because both of them don't have interesting kits. I'm getting Aoife because I want to try out some stuff, but yeah, either because they got butchered to hell for Aoife's case, or the kit is very simple, but with crazy passive effects and numbers stacked on top for Escoffier's case. That's how it goes, and yeah, because of that, I'm just not gonna be doing a review on either of them, unless we figure out some crazy shit with Aoife. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, like the video if you liked it, sub to the channel to help it out, and yeah, I hope to see you in another video, whatever that is. Most likely, it's going to be an Abyss review, because there's nothing else to really do, because, yeah, that's about it. And yeah, and of course the version review at the end of the next version, which will be in quite some time. We're getting a lot of Noddercry teasers and stuff. We'll see what they have in plan for 6.0, which again, they're teasing like hell. So, and I hope that it's not going to be like Natlan at all. I hope that Noddercry is going to have some actually interesting stuff that is actually has the fucking elements in the game associated with puzzles and stuff. Like, you can do non-elemental stuff like Pneumousia, which Pneumousia has a basis on elemental reactions. It's very similar to the mushrooms in Sumeru. But Natlan doesn't. So again, I hope that Noddercry is going to be much better than Natlan. Anyways, that's it. I'm gonna close the video. See you in another one. Goodbye.